Hey y'all, I have a weird empty spot on my bookshelf that's the perfect size for a Pochita. Let's make one! To start with, let's get out some Super Sculpey. I'm using this original Sculpey because I bought this giant box of it and it works well, but you have to get it real nice and flat, and my little spaghetti maker pasta machine thing was just not at the right setting. It wasn't very AMSR of me, but I adjusted the settings and just a second it kind of looks nice. All that nice squishy clay. Yay! I'm gonna make the body of Pochita starting with a ball of aluminum foil. This is gonna keep him from being too heavy and also save me. That clay is quite expensive while aluminum foil is quite cheap. So just make it into the shape of a single end pointy football and then cover it up. Little baked potato, but inside out. I'm not making the final chainsaw nose here. I am just making a temporary one, but I wanted to have one so I kind of knew what it should look like with his legs. I didn't want to put a foot too close to his nose, if that makes sense. He's already so very, very tiny. So I just made these little stumps to stick to either side of his body in the front, and then I'll do the same on the back end. Now, I wanted to make the legs about the same thickness on each side, so I tried to make both front legs at the same time and both back legs at the same time. That way they had the same general shape, and then the same for their location. I wanted to make it even on both sides. Even though he's not a particularly well defined shape, I feel like those things were pretty standard on your demon dog bodies. So his little front legs making his back legs, make him a little chonkier than the front legs, right? And again, making both at the same time so that they look about the same. Kind of helps to be able to see them both independent of the body. If a smarter person had made this Pochita, they might have added some armature so that the legs didn't mush, but he's such a baked potato, it doesn't really matter. Now, if you wanted to really be cool like me, you would make two very nice little butt cheeks for your Pochita. They are the cutest little thing, but make sure to make the left one a little bit more butt cheeky than the right one, because you are going to be covering it up. Wait, left one or one or the other, you will be covering it up with a tail later on. So before we get there though, we have to make the chainsaw handles. So one kind of in the butt crack area, hanging out, very easy to do. Just sticking it on there and hoping for the best. The top one though, a little bit more difficult. It's a bridge. This is not the way I should have done it. But again, we'll get there. You'll see why in a few minutes. With his manhandling handles in place, we can make a hole for his eyeballs, one on each side of his little face, with a pretty big hole, and then, you know, just going through and doing some touch-up, and perhaps, if you notice in a minute, a bit of foreshadowing, as I was noticing that handle was falling. Wonder what's going to happen when that bakes. While he's baking for the first time, I wanted to go ahead and make his chainsaw nose. So I flattened out a piece of clay and then wrapped it around a loop of wire and then just kind of worked it until it was in the shape of a chainsaw. very scientific. I wanted to make sure that the ends of the wire were poking out so those could be inserted into the face. Oh, that sounds horrible. And then just make sure those edges all around the outside were flat, so I had somewhere to put his chainsaw teeth, which is kind of my favorite part. But just making it flat, it was not a very smart thing of me to put it straight onto the silicone mat, because silicone mat does not mean non-stick for the clay, but it was worth a shot. And I bet you guessed it, but his little chainsaw handle on the top came off when he baked. So I've got to figure out a way to either get it back on there or create a new one. I decided to try putting the broke one back on, but I could not really get it to drill very nicely. So I decided to just get me some armature wire and then stick it into the 2 holes there. Gotta make sure that the handle is the right size for his head, not too oversized and not too undersized, because once you stick that wire in there, it's kind of over. You've done it now. It's done. That's his handle. And I'm using this liquid clay, kind of like a glue here, to get the armature wire to stick. It's bakeable liquid clay, and you just stick it in there and the clay hardens just like any other clay. So it'll hold that armature wire in place. We'll use it again here in just a minute when we do the chainsaw teeth as well, just to make sure all the parts are really sticking on. About those chainsaw teeth. So here we go, putting his nose on. You got to put the wires in the right place. And then kind of make sure it's attached real good by adding a little bit more clay around that join line, covering up any of the exposed aluminum foil, because I still had a little bit of aluminum foil pooking out. At this point, I decided I was done looking at those dead hollow eyes, and I decided to go with clay eyes. Just got to make them the right size little circles that you can just kind of mash in there and fill any holes, because if you don't get all of the air out, it will crack and you will be one sad sculptor. Then you just repeat for the other eye, and your camera turns off conveniently so no one can see that. Very cool, huh? While Pochita goes for another bake, I decided it would be super fun to go ahead and make the teeth for his chainsaw. I know that sounds crazy since I'm all excited about the teeth for the chainsaw, but why not, you know? Do the things that bring you joy. I also decided it would be fun to spray them all over the room with my heat gun. Note to self, that did not work. I had to still bake them because I just sent them all over the room. I didn't actually get any heat on them. But while they were baking, I went ahead and sanded Pochita, because of course, you know, no reason for him to be like all flat and smooth or anything after I worked really hard for that. Of course not. Then it was time to start working on those teeth. And the chainsaw itself, with those flat sides on the kind of the exterior bit, just making a little north of the border trademarked wormy dealy, getting it to sit up on there with a little bit of that liquid clay, and it kind of works like a glue. It's going to hold it on there and just keep it from flopping off until you can get it baked. It's also going to make it really, really nice for putting those teeth in, because it's a little bit of extra bondo to keep it all together. This is the best part, y'all. Not this part, not where I had the wormy dealy was too short, but like right after that where I'm putting the teeth in, that's the best part. It's coming, y'all. It's coming. See, teeth. Gonna put a tooth on. Ooh, ooh. My mom suggested that I put one on each end and then one in the center and then kind of work around, but I got too excited, and I started with that. It was a very good idea. It was a very good idea, but I just got too excited and just started jamming teeth in left and right, front and center. Oh, it was just so fun. They are the best little chainsaw teethies ever. Also, they're actually pretty sharp, so don't step on one. And when you're done, just be sure to put your extra teeth away in your teeth box and hang on to it until you have another tooth need. So sand her down one more time, and then it's time to add the finishing touches. We're gonna drill a hole in his butt. Oh, that was not supposed to come out that way. Oh, that was horrible. But no, really, drill a hole and push a wire in, and then twist that wire to make it look like a handle, because he's a chainsaw devil after all, and they have handles coming out their rear. And just to drive the point home that it's not a handle protruding, but really a handle that is part of him, you've got to give him a little, protuberance. Right. Just move on to nicer things and give him some eyelids, an upper lid, a lower lid, both eyes. Make it a little less scary to look straight at your cute little Pochita, right? So with his eyes all done, it's time to start painting. The best what? It's time to just end the project because there's no yellow paint, no orange paint. Orange paint to the rescue! Yay! Just a little bit of that, a little bit of Mod Podge, and you got yourself an orange primer for your Pochita. And here's a moment of AMSR of stirring these two beautiful colors together to make the most perfect Pochita orange. Now, I have a very special painting style that I like to follow whenever I am priming a sculpture, and that is slop it on. Get it on there, because you know what? At the end of the day, it's just the primer. It's a base coat. And even if it's the final coat, that is what it is. The paint's got to get on there. So just getting it on there with this very fancy slop it on style, perfectly fine. It's just the first coat. And if that means covering his eyeballs in orange, that means covering his eyeballs in orange. Sometimes you just do what you gotta do. So I didn't prime the whole everything in the orange. I decided to use the black with a little bit of Mod Podge after I already started to go ahead and prime the chainsaw bit because, why not? Why not? I mean, at this point, we're just having a good time, right? And I was just ready to see him in the colors that he would kind of be, because this really does change the whole way that Pochita looks. If you're smart, you waited till it dried before you started putting on the black over the orange. But if you're like me, you did not, and you're just going to be really careful and try really hard not to touch anything, not leave any fingerprints, that kind of thing, while you fill in all the black bits as a second coat over the orange that is not completely and totally dry. Now, there are some of the comics where his handles are painted a dark brown instead of being black, but there are others where they're black, so regardless, we're just going to go with black because that's what I happen to have, and it worked, it fit, it was what my Pochita needed. Now you're probably saying his chainsaw needs to be silver. And yes, while I agree that the body of the chainsaw is silver, I have, after I painted everything silver, realized that the teeth of the chainsaw are indeed actually supposed to be black. So here, let me go back and fix that, because yes, I painted everything silver, and it wasn't all supposed to be silver. Yay! So with that done, it's time to give our little demon dog his sweet, sweet widow eyes. And I just went in with a white on top of that black and made a huge mess. So use a tiny paintbrush. Notice that I am not. Use a tiny paintbrush, and then you won't have as much mess as I had to cover up. I decided at this point that my Pochita needed a wash. I whipped some up with some finish and acrylic paint and a little bit of water, and then just went to town making him all wet and then dabbing it back, and then making him all wet and dabbing it back. Easy, easy way to make sure that your whole piece is kind of using the same undertone. While I think that his eyes are perfectly shiny, I thought they could be shinier, especially if I opened this bottle of resin. So with a little UV resin and one of those little UV resin flashlights that I'm not sure which setting is the actual UV setting, I made a big mess, great, with the UV resin, and then also set my piece out in the sun to bake, because why not? I just couldn't figure out the flashlight for the life of me. Finally, I felt like I really just needed my Pochita to be just a little bit dirty. So I scraped up some pastels and a little bit of black and a little bit of orange together to make just kind of like a little dusting to give him. The paintbrush wasn't really cutting it, so I just dug my fingers in and started getting him a little bit dirty with my fingers. I really liked the way that looked. So I put a little bit on and then rub a little bit and get it all kind of up in there, and it just really popped any of those little crevices and things around his legs, his butt cheeks, all of the bits that really needed to stand out. It's almost better than dry brushing, y'all. And it's time for the glamour shots, baby. So there you have it. There's our little Pochito, baby. And he's gonna get his own pride of place on that shelf.